Hello everyone, welcome to this quick tutorial on the Future Timber part split user interface. So on the Future Timber ribbon, you can find the part split area, and that is divided up into wall and slab. If we click on the wall, we are presented with this user interface, and this user interface is subdivided up into 4 main areas, and these can be found by looking at the orange banners. So the first area, and the most important, is the types area. Then we have the preview, the statistics, and the direction. So we will discuss these now in further detail. Underneath the types, the first category we have here is a preset, and this is a way to save and store parameters that you may want to use on multiple projects. So for example, if we create one, let's say we fill in some parameters here. As an example, we can give it a name and save it. Then when we want to load one, we select from our list. So we select example, we select it, and we have our parameters loaded up over here. If we want to delete it, we just simply press delete. We select what we want to delete and we press delete. Then we have the multiple different ways of splitting the parts, and I will go through these one by one. So the standard is the most important. This field needs to be filled in for the tool to work. And this is a standard distribution of the length of the part. So for example, we can put in here 2500 and we can go select and simply select our part, press enter. And we can jump over to the previous screen there. We're presented with the element that we have just selected. And if we click on the preview over here, then it shows us our split part with some extra dimensions. And it gives us some information at the bottom. We have the net area, gross area, and boundary area. And on a more complicated split, I'll describe these a bit better. But if we want to see a different split, so for example, 3500, we can simply click on this button again, and we have the split now divided up into 3.50 lengths, starting from the left-hand side and moving towards the right-hand side. If we wanted to go the other way, we simply press on right to left, and we have a look at there again. So that's the basic function, standard, and standard needs to be filled in for all the other parameters. It's a way that the tool understands how the leftover parts will be split if we're using some of the other categories of splitting. So let's just press OK, and we have our element split there. We move on, and we go back here again, and let's choose a preset. It loads up our part length. Let's say we want to split our wall over here. We want to split the openings, and we want to create a lintel and a spandrel sill panel at the bottom. So we select the element we want to split. We are going to add here some information on the lintel and sill, and we have to select which openings we want to split. So we select all of them, press enter. We can see here that we have 1 wall selected and 3 openings selected. Now, if we press the preview button, we can see the splits here. And again, we can play with these and see the different impacts. Change from left to right. Let's say we don't do all of them. So we remove that. We have now the only type of part split selected now is the standard. So we are not seeing any enhancements to the element over here. So let's just select the 2 windows, and we're not going to split this one and see what happens. As you can see, we have, let's add a bearing here. We have the splits, but we have an awkward arrangement over here. So we could test that and say, let's go right to left. And we still have an awkward arrangement. So we'd probably split that in a different way. But for now, let's just select all our panels again and do that. So here we can have a quick look at the statistics. We can see the different ways that this is working here is we have the net split, which is basically the outline of the element. We have the gross, which in this case, again, it's the outline because there's no the gross. You'd get the gross when there is an opening inside of a panel. Then that would account for. It wouldn't account for the opening. It would be included in the boundary here. And then the boundary box is essentially the length times the height, which is sort of an optimized type of meters squared that somebody may use. And you can see the different types of effects here of the splits. So if we press OK, we have our panel split like this. And we can see here the different type of elements. So if we go to the next feature, we have around the center of an opening. And I'm going to show you what happens if well, actually, we can't even select any of these without selecting the standard. So we have to select the standard. Now, I won't fill this in so you can see what happens. And let's say around the center of the opening, let's select our openings and try to see the preview. And it gives us an error because we don't have a standard distribution width input. So we can put, say, for example, 3000 over there. And we need one here as well. So we have the standard distribution width, which is going to be, let's say, the leftover panels after we've add our enhancement here. So let's make this 2000. So here we can see we have 2000 here, 2000 here around the center of the opening. And here, if we flip between these, we can see how the statistics is being calculated. So net here, we can understand that the net is calculating only the surface area and not the opening. The gross is counting the opening as well, except for this one over here. And the bounding box is the counting the length times height. So we can see the different those have on the square meterage. And when we talk about the leftover remaining parts 3000, we are looking at these extra panels here. If I make this smaller, we will be able to see how that is affected. There we go. So we're going from left to right again. In the first case, this is getting 2000, then it goes from left to right. So here we're looking at 2000 again. We have a little thin slither, which is correct for our splitting arrangement here, but obviously you wouldn't probably want to do that. 2000 and so on. So let's take this back up to 2500. So we have a nice equal split there. Okay, and if we move on to the next one, we will select the standard. We will input a preset and equal distance between openings. So the way that this is working is it is splitting. We select two openings and it will locate the center point between these two openings and create a split along that. So here we can sort of see that this is bigger than there. Essentially, these are all different distances between the openings, but it will find the center and split it accordingly. So let's select the openings. So here we can see that all the panels are different widths, but the controlling factor is the equal distance between the openings. So this is quite nice if you have visual panels and you'd like to keep the split nice and center between the openings. And moving on to the next one, let's select a preset. Here we have equal distance from the center of the openings. So this is quite similar to the equal distance between, but the difference is that now we are splitting between, we are essentially finding the middle point of the opening and then splitting between the middle points of the opening. So let's select those openings. And here we can see that the middle point of the opening is our control point for splitting. So this could be, but in this case, for a wall, probably you wouldn't do this, but maybe for slabs, and you need to have a clear span in between the openings, you would have this type of arrangement. And lastly, well, not lastly, but you can also combine different types. So let's select our stand over here, and we can combine different types, and we'll also show some enhancements that we've added where we have openings that are really close together and how we create a combined lintel. So let's select some elements for lintel. Let's say we want lintel for those, lintel for those. And that's it. So we can see we've selected only 2. Now we've selected 5. And we can just double check that. Yeah, so we can see here that we've selected this. So here we understand that there's been a default enhancement applied where the lintel, if you were creating a lintel for each of these openings, they would start to overlap and create an awkward split. So the program has a determined parameter where it says if I find an overlap between lintels, I'm going to join them. So we have this nice arrangement here with joining lintels, and we can understand also the length of these things quite quick and easy. So let's find another one for around the center of the opening. Let's say we want to have that one around the center of the opening. We can then add our size in here, and we have that as 2450. This is still going from left to right now. So we see 2450, 2450, 2450, and so on. And let's get equal distance between openings. We can select these two, see what happens. We've got 2450. If we make this a little bit bigger, we get rid of that awkward split. So essentially, when we have a split between the openings, we will create the standard split. We'll go from that split one case that way and one case that way and continue 2450, 2450, 25, 25. And we can select our last one over here, for example. There we go. So now we have a nice combination of our different type of splits. The adjacent element as a reference, I will show you now. I can press OK. We have our splitting arrangement here. So the adjacent element as a reference is more useful for slabs. It's a nice way to, because on a slab, essentially you have to subdivide the larger slab into smaller slabs before splitting it further into structural spans. So let's click on the slab, and it's the same user interface. So we try to keep everything common so that you learn it once and you already see a familiar type of layout. So let's select, we don't need a preset in this case. Again, we have to select standard. So we select the element, and this is the major difference with the slab, is that you get prompted with a action that you need to do. So we need to select path that slab will be split perpendicular to. So this is almost like selecting the edge where you want the slab to be split perpendicular. So if I select this edge, I'm going to get slabs that split that way. Or if I select that edge, the slabs are going to be split this way. In this case, because we're going to use the adjacent as a reference, it doesn't really matter which one we select because we're going to be selecting other elements to split our slab. That one in this case. So we go to adjacent element as reference, we select, and if we have a look underneath here, we have some support elements. We have a wall, a beam, and a beam. We select these as our reference because we want to subdivide this into 4 smaller parts. Press enter, and we can have a look to see if this was successful, and it was. Press OK. Now we have our slab subdivided, and we can just split that even further. I'm getting prompted with an edge. At the moment, you can't see the X-ray because I have original and parts turned on. I have both over here. So if I just select to parts and I go back and I do this again, now you can see it's just X-ray. So let's say we have to span this way. I'll select that edge. This one, let's say I have to span that way. Select that edge. Same, same. Again, I have no part length over here, so it prompts me with an error. And I can flick between these now to see the different types of splits. And this is where the statistics can come in handy, particularly on if you want to split large multiple walls at the same time. You can have a look to see what the impact is of my length on the total part count. So for example, 2450 out of all those slabs is giving me 20 lifts, 20 parts. If I say, let's make this 3000, then I can see 18 lifts, but I have a really small panel over here. So I can go maybe somewhere in between. 19 lifts, a bit more of a better panel of here. I can flick through them to see what the implications are. And when I'm done, I can just press OK. And that splits very quickly. And if I just delete all the parts here, double check. And delete them. I can show you quickly splitting all these in one go. Select that, enter, saying I selected 9 elements, and let's say all the openings need to have a lintel. And I can just press the preview button. I can filter between these to see the implications of my choice. And if you say that now we can see that I've selected 19, there's 19 elements, this is the individual, and I have 115 in total for 9 selected elements. If I change this, let's say to 3000, and I press that, I can see that I've reduced it to 5. Let's say it's a smaller panel width. See that I have 122. Press OK, and split very quickly. So that's a quick overview on the user interface and the types of splits. Thank you very much.